Hi, my name is Leah Phillip, and today I'm going to be doing a psychoanalysis on one of the characters from the famous movie Fight Club. Today, we're going to be talking about who we're analyzing, what our diagnosis is, what evidence from the film supports that, and the treatment and beyond, the broader implications of this diagnosis, that is. So, first, who are we deciding to psychoanalyze and what's their relevance? So I've decided to analyze the narrator, who's played by Edward Norton from Fight Club. He's never explicitly named, but it's ultimately two characters believed to be the main character and one external projection known as Tyler Durden. Our main character, the narrator, is a white-collar worker who struggles with insomnia and dissatisfaction with his life. He attends support groups for various afflictions in an attempt to deal with his emotions and sense of alienation. And this film is set in a postmodern, early to mid 2000s consumer driven society where the character feels disconnected and powerless. His struggles are set against the backdrop of corporate culture and alienation and the search for the meaning of life in an era dominated by materialism and individualism. This is the picture of the two characters. On the left is our narrator, and the right is the external projection, Tyler Durden, who is viewed as this macho, cool rock star to the narrator. So now we're going to talk about our diagnosis and what evidence from the movie supports that. So the main character likely suffers from dissociative identity disorder, also known as DID, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. DID is a psychological condition where a person has two or more distinct personalities or identities. In Fight Club, the narrator develops a second identity, Tyler Durden, as I previously mentioned, as a coping mechanism for his dissatisfaction with life. In this film's culture, there's a lack of mental health support, and characters like the narrator are stigmatized or viewed as weak for not adhering to social expectations. The diagnosis might be ignored or misunderstood by the characters within the film's world. And in other cultures, this disorder isn't often recognized because of spiritual and moral failings and a sense of dishonor given to your family if you were diagnosed with DID. So the symptoms that we see in the movie, the narrator exhibits incredible memory loss or gaps in memories, especially when Tyler Durden is active. For example, he doesn't remember the events of the Fight Club gatherings themselves, which Tyler introduced the narrator to, or the destruction that Tyler causes. Um, there's also the most obvious one. He has a distinct identity. The appearance of Tyler Durden as a separate personality who is entirely different in behavior from the narrator makes strengthens the case of Tyler and or the narrator having DID. So the direct evidence, this is a scene that helps emphasize his analysis. The narrator wakes up one night after the first Fight Club meetings, and he has no memory of how he ended up in his apartment or what happened during the meeting. This is a key symptom of DID, memory gaps, when one personality takes over. He checks his surroundings and discovers a trail of destruction, indicating that something had happened but no recollection of the events themselves. This represents the memory loss associated with DID when one identity's actions are not remembered by the person's primary self. So this is also how I would treat him and beyond. Cognitive behavioral therapy, as we've learned, and or psychotherapy, could help the narrator understand and integrate his two identities, making him aware of Tyler's existence and its origins. This treatment is useful for DID as it aims to help the individual person become aware of their different identities and address underlying issues such as trauma, stress, or emotional pain. If therapy were to focus too heavily on integrating Tyler, it could force the narrator to confront a disturbing side of himself that he's not ready to accept. Ethical concerns, about consent and readiness to engage in therapy would be important. And on the bottom left, you can see a general overview of how CBT works, and we've talked about it in class. So on a broader perspective, the film's portrayal of DID is not entirely accurate in a clinical sense because DID is a complex disorder, and the film simplifies and exaggerates it for narrative purposes by blending the two personalities into a single, sometimes overly dramatic figure. Influence on understanding. Movies like Fight Club can shape public perceptions of psychological disorders, but they often, as I said, sensationalize them. The portrayal of DID can contribute to a misunderstanding of the disorder, leading to a misdiagnosis or misinterpretation of what it looks like in real life. So while this helps dramatically in putting mental health out there, especially for men, it doesn't necessarily portray the incorrect information. Thank you.